Okay, so this is...
Lesson on colors.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Now, each color has its own spirit. It works in its own different way, and we're going to do our best to show you how the different colors work. All of us will use different colors in different ways, so we will show you what is a good example of red today. So let's start off with a small red creature, Glitterfang. Glitterfang is a 1-cost, 1/1. You'll see that a lot of red decks that use small creatures are Weenie Rush decks or Goblin decks.
Yeah, Weenie Rush decks.
And the Goblin decks they power themselves up enough. I wouldn't call them a Weenie Rush.
Well, in my opinion, calling a Goblin deck a Weenie Rush deck is kind of like calling a Sliver deck a Weenie Rush deck.
I've done it.
Exactly.
So, you'll find a lot of the small creatures, they'll have maybe one effect good, one effect that could be perceived as bad, like this one doesn't stay on the field after the end of the turn. However, it's those special things that can really make a red deck real strong. If you could take care of the negatives and make them into positives, your littlest creatures can be a big aid. Now, going into the bigger red creatures, we have things like this. Of course, this is a legendary. However, you'll find higher cost, more effects. Oftentimes, they'll have a higher attack and defensive power. Sometimes they'll come with extra costs.
And sometimes they'll come with beautiful little abilities, such as this one here.
Yeah. So red, if you want to think about it, they're stormtroopers. They are shock and awe. They want to do burns. They want to just hit you hard. Even at the cost to the player. Some red cards, you have to take a hit. The player who uses the card loses life or sacks a creature, but they get something out of it. So, with that out of the way, this is a red instant called Beacon of Destruction. Red spells do a lot on damage. That is their bread and butter. They want to hit you. They want to hit you in the face.
And they will do it very efficiently if played right.
Red, for the most part, from my experiences, it's less creature heavy and more it's about direct damage. It's about hooking fireballs and lightning bolts. It's a matter of, I don't care how many creatures you have, this fire is coming after you.
Yeah, and that's a definite way red is played. Now, of course, me and Broken, we will run it differently. He actually does run, if you've seen his decks, a lot more spell heavy. I'll run creature heavy. And you'll actually see how these different plays will come up later in the videos.
And to be honest, there is no such thing as a right way to play it. Just player preference.
Yeah, player preference. Each play has its own strengths and weaknesses. Next would be blue.
Blue is about manipulation. It's some of it's about creatures, but a lot of it is just about messing with your deck, messing with your opponent's deck, and messing with everyone's creatures.
Now, we don't have big creature, small creature, because blue spells are really what make the blue color
blue.
Yeah, it's kind of the signature, and here's what I mean. Small cost here, Serum Visions. 1 blue, draw a card, scry 2. Scry 2, we'll go over in the next video, but it allows you to look at cards so you can...
You can manipulate what cards are on the top of your deck.
Exactly, thank you.
Get a nice glimpse into the future.
Or manipulate it.
Right.
Sometimes you get cards at low cost with multiple effects. That way you can best strategize. Blue, it can be very troll-worthy. However, it can also be broken very easily. Because if you've noticed, all of these, although they're very good cost and you get great effects, they're not creatures.
Nope.
You will not find a lot of blue creature-heavy decks. Blue creatures, nothing against them, they're usually high cost, they come with great effects. Overall, it's just they will not be able to get out on the field when you need them all the time. So
most of the time when you're running a blue deck, you're running a lot of counters anyways.
yes, mostly blue is known for counters. Green.
Green is creatures.
Green is creatures, mana manipulation, anything that actually has to deal with creatures in general.
Yeah, green, if you are playing green cards, you are essentially building an army and running over somebody.
And you're doing it very fast. At least you're trying to.
Yeah, you want to build it fast, and with cards like Birds of Paradise, you can. A lot of creatures in the green spectrum will have abilities where they'll be able to make mana in place of land.
Another good example of that sort of idea.
Somberwald Sage.
Because, I mean, it's 3 mana of any one color, 2 mana pool, but you can only do this for creature spells. Green really goes off of that idea of you need your creatures now.
Now, the thing is, when it comes to big creatures, green, ooh, they got some big ones.
It is said by Wizards of the Coast that green has the biggest creatures.
And you know what? I could agree on that.
My opinion, however, is black has the biggest creatures because the way black works is I have the only creatures.
And
we'll
get into that when we get to black.
Yeah, black, that is Broken's color of choice. That is his gun. But green, I would have to say, is probably mine.
Oh, easily.
It's one of mine, too.
Well, just looking at you and me, it's kind of obvious.
Now, green, big creatures, as you can see, high cost, high power, high toughness, big effects. These are your game changers. These are the things that your opponent does not want to see on the field. And they will do everything to get that thing off the field. Oftentimes, it'll be very difficult. But if your big creatures stay on the field when you're running a green deck, then you are running the game. It will be everyone else's duty to try and break that. Now, when it comes to spells, as blue is more spell heavy, green is more creature heavy. That doesn't mean, as with blue creatures, that green spells are essentially worthless. They just work a lot with creatures.
Absolutely.
Such as Doubling Season, which anything comes on the field with a token or counter, it gets more, including Planeswalkers. Basically, you will find a lot of very, very creature-friendly spells in the green color. You'll also find a lot of things to help you get mana, or help power up creatures. So it will work on getting mana, helping your creatures, and that's essentially what green does. So white, as green is the big gun creatures, red is burning, blue is manipulation, white is stopping. And not stopping as in destruction, stopping as in you take less damage, you heal more. It is a great defensive color. And when we go into more advanced color combinations, you'll find that white does really well with green, especially with cards such as Congregation at Dawn. If you run a green-white deck, you will know because it allows you to pull 3 creatures from your deck and put them on top. White, however, something simple, Holy Day. This is a bread-and-butter white card. Prevent all combat damage. Very simple, very effective. You can have 4 of those in a deck. Creatures in white will often have something where it blocks damage, or sometimes it'll do small amounts of damage to other creatures. Some of them may tap other creatures, or, such as my little Ghostlit Redeemer here, it just gives you life. White is more of a defensive color. You run a good white deck, and you will not essentially be running with the power of red, or the counters of blue, or the creature size of green. However, you will have a pretty defensive deck, and it'll be their job to get over that. That doesn't mean white has some weak creatures higher up in the cost, because they got some other things as well.
Very dangerous, very scary cards.
Blazing Archon is probably, I think he's one of the highest cost white cards. Creatures can't attack the player. That's pretty simple right there. That is an ultimate defender.
That shuts a lot of decks down, too. You pretty much stalled an entire game with that.
Yeah, Blazing Archon is, if you're running a white deck, Blazing Archon can save. Broken, would you like to take care of black?
Certainly. Black is just the color of no. It has some creatures in it. They have a decent amount of abilities, but the majority of the focus of black is just making your opponent suffer. Case in point, as you said with white, white has ways to stop your opponent's attacking. Black has the same thing. Darkness. It is essentially just a black copy of Holy Day. Your opponent, their attacks don't do any damage.
Now, white has Holy Day, black has Darkness. Green has a version called Fog.
Very lovely, lovely card.
I'm just saying it's got 4 copies of the Fog type card.
Well, for instance, like they were saying, green also has their own Fog, which does the exact same thing as, say, Holy Day or Darkness.
But I'm saying overall, for if you're blocking damage, you're gaining health, I'm thinking white's the stronger color on that.
At least when it's kind of like a passive-aggressive way of doing it.
Yeah, it's a defender option. It's defender green, or green is attacker white, however you want to cut that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, back to black. So keeping in the theme of you hit your opponent and everything they do, guess the verdict. 2 costs can be played during your opponent's turn. They lose a life and they have to sack a creature. People absolutely hate this card because it gets around indestructible creatures.
Which we'll go over effects in another video. However, indestructible works on the effect they can't be destroyed. That doesn't mean they cannot be sacrificed.
Now, if you're after more of a proactive, prevention thing, lethal vapors. As long as it's on the field, whenever a creature hits the field, it is gone.
Now, since it dies, anything with indestructible is allowed on the field.
Yeah, they get around it.
Or things that can be regenerated.
Yeah, can get around
which
it.
is a big green thing, however.
That is a gigantic green thing. There are other instances, but
yeah,
it's not that often.
Yeah, regeneration we'll go over in the next video.
Yeah.
And your opponent can get rid of it, but then you get 2 turns in a row, and
Well, you just...
people usually...
They just end up having their turn skipped. 2 turns in a row really only matters if you're playing a 1-on-1 or a 2-headed giant.
Which is most of the games.
Yeah.
What's best is when my opponent gets rid of that, and then immediately on my next turn, I play another one.
I remember having 3 of those out on the field while fighting this guy. That was just bull.
Keeping in theme with the prevention, we also have No Mercy, which is if your opponent actually does successfully deal damage to you with any creature, that creature is just automatically destroyed, which is still gotten around with regeneration or indestructible, but most decks are going to be put at pretty much a stop with that card.
Yes.
It is said that green has the biggest creatures. I say black has the biggest creatures simply because I will have the only creatures. My job is to wipe everyone's stuff.
Speaking of which...
Keeping in theme with that, Mutilate!
What a lovely card.
All creatures on the field get -1/-1 for every swamp I control.
Now, swamp is the black land, so... Very simple. You run a black deck, you're going to have a lot of swamps.
Oh, yeah.
So this makes very, very no.
The other beauty of that is since it lowers their toughness, it does get around indestructible creatures.
Correct?
In fact, that gets around most protections.
It does, however, after it's regenerated, it comes back with its original stats.
Yeah. Hence, most protections.
And since Planeswalkers are really big, we've also got Hero's Downfall. So for 3 cost, you get to automatically destroy a creature or an opponent's Planeswalker.
Now, Planeswalkers, they've gotten a lot more important recently, and they will be as time goes on. But as this is one of the earliest Planeswalker killers, it can be no.
And the reason this thing is so nasty is because there are not a lot of ways to regenerate Planeswalkers.
Nope.
Yeah, when a Planeswalker is gone, for the most part, it is gone.
Finally, we have one of my absolute favorites, Big Legendary Shieldred. Had a little talk about, creatures in black. This is my bread and butter for creatures. He costs an exceptional amount. He's a 6/6, but he's got Swamp Walk, so if your opponent has any swamps, he becomes unblockable. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you pull a creature back from your graveyard to the battlefield, and during your opponent's upkeep, they have to sacrifice a creature. He quickly becomes public enemy number 1.
Absolutely.
Now, with each color, they have different strengths. There's also cards that have multiple colors. Pardon me.
Multicolored cards are also a very wonderful thing.
Now, you'll see with creatures in multicolored decks, they will often have a higher cost. This is Maelstrom Archangel. Okay, as you can see, since this creature uses a mana of all 5 kinds, it has an effect of, it's flying, it's a 5/5, but the effect that makes this pay, whenever it does damage, I get a creature from my hand. And that could be any creature without paying the mana cost, like, hey, look.
Drusilla.
The Blade of Gold Knight. Now, this is a card, once again. Card. It's one of those things you do not want to see. This is a multicolored card. It's red and white specifically, so anyone that runs Boros colors will be able to run this. It's a 5/5 like the Archangel. It is technically a little bit bigger than the Archangel, about a couple inches or so, because it is flying, first strike, and it has the warm and fuzzy special abilities of when your opponent takes damage, they take twice as much. When you take damage, the owner of the card, you take half. I believe rounded up. Oh.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, totally.
So,
oh, what, you're at 7 life?
So, as you can see with creatures, you're going to get your money's worth, if you can get all the mana. So when it comes to spells, you still get your money's worth.
If you know which ones to play.
Yes, there are some spells where you definitely have to work with. However, I would say multicolored, you will get some really nasty combinations. Supreme Verdict. Now, board wipes, most colors, actually I believe all colors, have some version of a board wipe.
Yeah.
I don't think green has one.
Green's multicolored board wipe is Savage Twister.
Yeah. Multicolor. I'm talking.
Well, singular, no. Well, keep in mind, even Supreme Verdict isn't its own singular.
Yeah, but it doesn't really need one. Its creatures kind of do that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's Green's
honestly,
job
black,
to
white,
make
and red are the only ones that have
board wipes.
Yeah.
Now, a board wipe, if you heard us say it before and you don't understand, a board wipe is something that goes, hey, look, your opponent has this great field with all this stuff and creatures on it. And you play this card, and it goes, no.
Pretty much.
So.
Before or after?
Before or after.
Somewhere around there.
So we have multicolored, we have all 5 colors. Now,
well, on the other end of the spectrum, we have this lovely little type called artifact cards. Artifacts, typically, they can run the gambit. There's artifact creatures, there's just flat-out artifacts. They are some of the cruelest, evilest cards you can play. Case in point would be one of my absolute favorites, the Mox Jet.
Now, this is an actual Mox card.
Yes.
Mox cards, if you ever find them, and they are true Moxes, and you sell them for anything less than hundreds of dollars, you will be mocked.
Yeah.
And given a job on Storage Wars.
Okay, we have to explain that.
Yeah, one of the guys on Storage Wars opened got in the storage unit. He got a whole bunch of Magic cards. He pulled a bunch of Moxes and a Black Lotus, which is the most expensive card that has ever been printed in Magic. They sell for anywhere between $6,000 to $25,000 a piece. He sold the entire collection for, I think, $900. $700.
Even without that, still, a box will not sell for $700.
He is completely branded. What makes the Moxes so nasty is because this provides, it stays on the field as an artifact. It provides black mana for tapping. Since it's an artifact, it's just a normal artifact, it does not have summoning sickness, and it is absolutely free to play. Other reasons people will absolutely hate you for artifacts. One of the cruelest, evilest things you can play is this beauty called Platinum Emperor.
Empyrean.
Whatever, I call him the Emperor.
Yeah, everybody does, for some reason.
He's an 8-cost, 8/8, and as long as he stays on the field, your life total cannot be changed.
Now, why would that be a good one? Well, if your life total can't hit 0, that makes losing the game more difficult.
But say you can get the Platinum Emperor out, or say your opponent isn't using life loss to kill you. Well, then you have to turn to our good friend, the Platinum Angel. 7-cost, 4/4 flyer. As long as he remains on the field, there is no way that you can lose the game.
And there's no way your opponents can win the game.
While having a Platinum Angel on the field once, I killed my friend when we were playing Magic, while I had negative 200 life and 47 poison counters.
Please note that 10 poison counters is all you need to kill her.
Yeah, 10 poison counters and you're gone.
You bite the big one.
Now, beyond artifacts, there is one other type, and that is the colorless creatures. For the most part, there are colorless cards. They're represented variously throughout the sets, but the big one that everyone knows nowadays is the Eldrazi.
High cost, high power, high toughness.
My favorite thing I ever did with one of these was I summoned one against my friend on turn 4. And just immediately wiped his entire field and killed him.
We'll go into exactly how, why, and...
Eldrazi's will be covered in a later video more in depth.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all the colors?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything. So, thanks for your time. Hope you learned a little bit of something, and we'll see you on the next video, guys.
The card.